welcome. Thank you very much for coming out, and it's a pleasure to be here. Having arrived at Reagan International Airport, I was thinking, oh, Washington. I'm coming to something like a suburb of Washington, or Washington, a suburb of Baltimore. I'm not really sure how that exactly works. And I'm remembering that in 2005, the International Neuroscience Conference took place over here. Is it always here? There's always somewhere else? I don't know. That's where it was. And there was a big hoo-ha. There was a lot of excitement, and it made the news, not because there were 3,000 scientists in attendance at it, but because of who the keynote speakers were, especially one keynote speaker, the Dalai Lama. Can I mention the Dalai Lama in a shul or in a yeshiva? I guess we could. We're going to hear a lot worse than that. The Dalai Lama was opening the International Neuroscience Conference. As soon as that announcement came out and the program was revealed, 300 neuroscientists out of the 3,000 that had registered said, we're not coming. And they withdrew their presence, their papers, and their poster papers, and their lectures, and so on. This is not science. You're presenting pseudoscience. There is no credibility to what you're doing. But as soon as those 300 vacancies appeared, hundreds more signed up because it really created a buzz. Why would somebody like the Dalai Lama be featured at a venerable scientific and medical event like that? And the reason was that he had subjected his monks, his meditating monks, to controlled studies of consciousness. And what would happen is that these monks would go into meditative states with their alpha wave synchronicity. And what they did was they separated one of the monks, put him in a Faraday cage, which means concrete, lead-lined, no electromagnetic radiation, no breeze, no nothing is getting into this box. Put him in there. Then they shone a light into the eyes of the other monk and watched the brain of this monk, the isolated monk, react. What was going on? Well, we have some consciousness experts right here in the room. We even have somebody here who participated, maybe even initiated some of those consciousness experiments with real researchers in real universities. This has been going on for a long time. Consciousness creates reality. That's part of the new science, the new physics. It's been around for close to a century. It takes a long time for people to clue into it. There's media offerings around it. The Secret, What the Bleep Do We Know? Things that nobody in this room would go to see because they don't have a hechsher from any competent halachic authority. So I'm just letting you know that these things are out there. Tracht gut, wird sein gut. Think positive, you will create the reality that way. That's embedded. It's not just about bitachon and your obligations as a Jew to think positive and to create a positive outcome by our very thoughts. That's great, and we know that from Torah, and it's emphasized in Hasidic thought. What's new is this is basic to the laws of nature, and hard-nosed materialistic scientists are forced to confront and to integrate thinking like this into their daily practice. This is the new science, one aspect of it, and the way the new science is meeting up with old-time religion, our Torah, although others are also thinking it matches up with their concepts, which of course they got from us. And that convergence is bringing us to the Geulah. It's necessary for the Geulah. Well, I didn't actually plan to say that. I really just summarized my talk. I should probably go, are there any questions? But then I'd have to give the lecture after question period, which would be really dumb. So let me start with today's topic, which I was given by Yehudit Cohen, Hardest topic I ever had to speak to. Looking for Mashiach in all the wrong places. As if there's a place you could not look for Mashiach, but this is what I was given. And all the wrong, a scientist's guide to Geulah. Well, let's see. These are very exalted topics. Mashiach, Geulah, science. We just had a beautiful dinner that we were just treated to. We don't want everybody to fall asleep on these highfalutin terms. So I think we should start with something a little more down to earth. Something timely. Leben mit Zman. Shopping. Let's start with shopping. So it's a very popular activity this time of year. Imagine you went to a store and you saw a collection like this. What would you think? Cute? Anything more? Can we focus a little bit more closely over here, Mr. Bittman, on the...
One is a dog in the middle.
What? The one in the middle is a what?
It's a dog.
Oh, I thought they're all dogs.
No, but I mean, it's the real one.
Oh, you mean it's a real one? And the other ones are...
Bears. I think.
Oh, yeah. The one in the middle, it's alive.
The one in the middle.
Well, what kind of store would you go to find a collection like this?
None.
None. You wouldn't? No? Only in pictures? You wouldn't go to a toy store and find a group like this and then a dog in the middle?
Yes.
What? You could. You could go to a toy store and find a dog in the middle. It would be a great... Are you in marketing?
No.
It could happen. But you'd be very surprised. I saw the looks on the faces. Very, very surprised. Look, it's a dog. I didn't notice. And then one person said it, the other one's going, no, it's not. Yes, it is. Wait a second. What if it was in a pet shop? Would you be less surprised to see a live dog in a pet shop surrounded by toys? Or would you be less surprised to see a live dog in a toy store surrounded by toys? Where would you be less surprised? You'd be less surprised in a pet shop because you're already primed to look for the living animal. You go to a toy store, you're not primed to look for a living animal. Our expectations condition our responses, right? That's just the nature of how things work. The same thing applies to the idea of Mashiach. 200 and change years ago, some Hasidically challenged individuals were taunting the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, and they asked him, this was as things were heating up before he was incarcerated for promoting the concepts of the Tanya and so on. And they asked him, where is your Mashiach now? And he replied, the Mashiach you're waiting for will never come, and the Mashiach that's coming, you don't want. Their expectations were not oriented. And how do we get appropriate expectations? Where should we look for Mashiach? What should we look for? Well, before we go there, let's talk a little bit more about expectations. Quite some time ago, in 1949, a set of experiments was created, and they've been replicated and advanced and all kinds of stuff. People still work on this field. They love it. It's about how expectations guide perception. And what they did was they took a deck of playing cards and they engineered some of the playing cards so that you would get, every once in a while, a 7 of hearts, which was really black. It was a black 7 of hearts. Or you'd have a 7 of spades that was red. And the spades and the hearts are very similar in form, but one's upside down and there's a little stem. And when people would see this, it would take them 4 times longer to identify. You see card after card after card after card. What's this one? It would take them 4 times longer to identify something because either the color was wrong or the form was wrong, and they really didn't know what to make of it. Not only did it take longer to properly recognize the form that they were looking at, but the process coming to recognition was fascinating. There were 3 different types of ways of confronting this type of a thing that you don't know what to do with. One is called dominance. You're used to seeing a spade as black, a heart as red, so they would call the red 7 of spades just a 7 of spades, or they would call it a 7 of hearts. And they would ignore the fact there's a mismatch between the color and the shape because they didn't even see it. It was hidden in plain sight. They simply miscategorized it. They thought they got it right and they got it wrong. They had to be reminded and shown again until it was oh and oh and oh, and sometimes they had to be shown many times over until they realized, oh, it's something I haven't seen before. Let me think, what is that? That's called dominance. A second kind of reaction is called compromise. What is that color really? So you'd get people saying, well, it's actually, again, it's either black or red. That's what the colors were, just like the spades and the hearts. Oh no, it's brown, it's black and red mixed, it's black with red edges, it's black and red light, it's purple, it's black on reddish card, it's olive drab, grayish red, it looks reddish, then it blackens. No, it's blackish brown. Where do these ideas come from when you're looking at a black seven of hearts? It comes from not wanting to be wrong, but not understanding how to be right, and you're grasping at straws to try and make sense of it, and you come up with this compromise solution that doesn't really make sense, but it's a story you tell yourself because you don't want it to be this or that. So you find some middle ground. Back to the Rebbe. Is anybody here offended by too much talk about Chabad or Lubavitch, or too much friendliness towards Chabad? Do we have any like good Litvisha people here, Misnagdim? I'd like, please raise your hand if you're a proud Misnagid. No? Okay, fine. So I could.
I'm on Misnagid.
You're a Misnagid? Azoya, Falaman Geret. Halavaya, Falaman Geret. Azam Misnagid Vidir. Okay, so I'm going to mention something else. Why did I mention this? We were talking about. Okay, you know what? The reason why it just actually slipped from my mind. So that's the second is compromise. So the Alter Rebbe had Hasidim, and they would go around and try to promote the Tanya. And they visited one Litvish Rav, and they gave him a Tanya. Here we're coming out of Yutes Kislev, the Baal Tanya. We're celebrating. He took the Tanya and he put it under his feet and he used it as a footstool. And his Gabbai said, Rav, how could you? It's got Divrei Torah, it has names of Hashem. At least, you don't want to put it on the table. I get that. At least put it on a chair. A compromise. Don't put it on the table, but don't put it on, make it a footstool. The Alter Rebbe, when he heard about this interaction, said, the Rav could become a chassid. The Shamish will never become a chassid. You can't compromise on emes. If it's Torah, it's emes. If it's posing as Torah and it's not, it deserves to be. Under the feet is good. Maybe you should burn it. I just about criteria and how far this goes. Parenthetically, I had shiurim. I had a home-based congregation, and we had shiurim over there. And the Rosh Yeshiva came and he was giving a shiur. He asked, "Could you please provide me with a Tanakh?" I brought him a Tanakh. Somebody had donated it to the shul. I'd never really used it before, and I gave it to him. He opens it. He flips through. He pulls me aside. He goes, "This is a Christian Bible." I go, "No, it's not. It says Hebrew scriptures right on the front." He says, "Yeah." I said, "I opened it up. It's got Bereshis, it's got Bereshis, Shmais, Vayikra, Bamidbar." He says, "Yeah, keep going." He says, "Yeah, it's got Navi and it's got Ksuvim." He says, "But it also has Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John." I said, "Whoa. I didn't know. What do I do with this?" He says, "Throw it in the garbage." I said, "Well, what about all the psukim of Torah that are in there? Like all the names of Hashem, exactly like a regular Chumash. It's Hebrew. It's written." He says, "Throw it out. It's fine. That's the halacha. Throw it out." So I went upstairs. My family was eating dinner because, the shul was in the basement. The shiurim was downstairs. I came upstairs. Everybody's sitting there at the table. I like drama. I open up. I show them, it says Hebrew scriptures on the outside. And I read, Bereshis bara Elokim eisa shamayim ve'eisa aretz. And I slam it shut. I go, Feh! And I go to the garbage and I throw it in the garbage can. And I walk out the room and I look over my shoulder. Is anybody looking? And they're going, "Okay, Dad, what did you do this time?" It's like they knew already there was something up. But the criteria are serious criteria. Compromise, okay. The third type of reaction, there's making a mistake. miscategorizing something. There is compromise, and then there's disruption. Disruption is kind of like a nervous breakdown. People would take a look at that black 7 of hearts or the red 7 of spades. I can't make out the suit, whatever it is. It doesn't even look like a card. I don't know what color it is now. I don't know if it's a spade or a heart. I'm not even sure now what a spade looks like. Oh my gosh. They're completely flustered. They have no idea. They get anxious and nervous. It's a problem. They react just because they can't figure out what they're looking at. Well, what about us? When it comes to Mashiach, if someone were to say, look, we're living in Mashiach times right now. Mashiach's here. Yeah, you're a nutcase. You're wrong. It's impossible. Forget about it. We just had a conversation like this at the table about, does the earth go around the sun? Does the sun go around the earth? Forget about it. You're wrong. We can see it. There's no way. There's no alternative explanation. Boom. Denial. Compromise. Well, you could say, I don't know. And then, please don't talk to me about these things. It's just too stressful. You know? Well, we have these cognitive disorders. We're susceptible. I myself had this about 32, 33 years ago when I was first exposed to Orthodox Judaism, and I was really enjoying this thing about mitzvahs, and, you know, it just was nice. And I started to do a little more and a little more, and then I found out it's a Messianic religion. I just told one of the guys who was sitting around the table, I said, you know, I was really enjoying this, but I think I'm going to have to drop out of Judaism now. Like, I'll go back to whatever it is I was doing, like, you know, but this doesn't work for me. Why? Come on, do you believe that somebody's going to come and save the world? Is that what you're modern people. Come on, like, look around you. Is that the kind of world that you live in? So one of the fellows says to me, you know, it's perception, cognition and perception. What you think, what do you see? He says, do you believe somebody could come today that is so evil and so powerful that he can destroy society? I said, absolutely. You know, we just come out of the doomsday clock at that point, you know, like, well, we were still in the doomsday clock, I think, back then. He says, would you agree that good and evil are two sides of one moral coin? I said, obviously that's true. He says, well, so therefore it's only logical that someone could come that by virtue of his goodness and his power on the side of good, that he could actually save the world. I was like, yeah, maybe. But it gave me enough to start and to reorient my thinking, to loosen my denial and so on. We're dealing now with a very special time. Those that study one chapter of Rambam a day, today is the day that we're making a siyum. So we're actually combining this talk about Torah, science, and Mashiach with a siyum harambam, a conclusion of the whole study of Maimonides on the 3-year cycle, on the 1-year cycle. Today actually is the conclusion on the 3-year cycle. And it concludes with the criteria of Mashiach. So I want to talk about what it says about on the 1 chapter a day, on a 3-year cycle. Today we learned the 12th chapter. On the 3-year cycle, we learn 1 chapter a day. On the 1-year cycle, we learn 3 chapters a day. But on that 3 years, so anyway, today is the siyum. Today is the end. Of the 1 chapter a day. Perek L'yom.
Also 1 year.
And the 1 year is today also?
Yeah.
Perfect. Beautiful. I guess that's the way the Rebbe designed it from the outset. So there in the end, in your shir at least, and Perek Yud Aleph of Hilchos Malachim, there's a part that was taken out for centuries from the Rambam. It was omitted. It was cut right out, which talks about Islam and Christianity. It says over there, and it was cut out because it doesn't speak positively about Christianity, and Rambam being a medieval Torah scholar, and who wrote also in Arabic, I mean, there were reasons not to put this in the Rambams, whether it was Arabic Rambams or it was translated in Latin or whatever it was. The point was, the Rambam says that these religions came into the world, even though there was so much destruction and so much problem that came as a result of them, in order to promote a concept of Mashiach throughout the world and the farthest reaches, so that when the true Mashiach comes, they'll understand already the idea about Scripture, about God's people, about how prophecy works, and how there's going to be somebody comes, he's going to make the world good, etc., etc. But they will understand where they were led astray. But if they didn't have the cognition, they wouldn't be able to have the perception even of a real Mashiach, because their whole mind would be distorted much worse than without this concept. And of course, I want to give two vignettes. I want to two slices of life. How the world being taught about Mashiach through their religions made people ready for a true concept. I was filling up gas. It was a really snowy February day a bunch of years ago. I had a Mashiach sign on my roof, and I pulled into a full-serve gas station because I really did not want to get out of the car and fill up my car with gas. It was such a cold night. The fellow was a Filipino immigrant. He was there in Toronto, where I lived there in Thornhill. He's filling up. He goes to the front of the car. He looks at the Mashiach sign. He goes to the back of the car. He's looking at the Mashiach sign. He makes another point to go to the front and to the back, and he's watching and he's reading all the things that it says over there. Finally, I'm paying. I roll down the window and we're making our transaction. He tells me, Moshiach. What that? I go, okay. It's a man that comes to save the world. He says, prophet or God? I go, whoa. If I say that Mashiach is prophet, he'll think Mashiach is only a prophet. Now, Mashiach is godly, but if I say that Mashiach is God, then he's going to think that that is the God, or a God. So that's not right. So even though Mashiach is godly and he's a prophet, I don't want to answer either, because I'm losing both ways. So I think I'll be smart. I say, he's a king. He thinks for a moment. He says, king or king of kings? Well, wait a second. Okay. If I'll say Mashiach is just a king, so, there's kings in every second, whatever. A few countries have royalty. If I tell him he's the king of kings, he's going to think he's Melech Malchei Amlachim Baruch Hu, which he's not. So now what am I going to do? Mashiach is the king of kings. All the kings will be under this king. But what he thinks about king of kings, I wasn't ready to go there. So I told him, look, there's one king of kings. He doesn't have a body. He's not a soul. He was around before the world was created. And if the world ever ends, he'll still be around. But he has a way of showing himself through a man who's descended from King David, through his son Solomon, father to son, until this, on this patrilineal line. I'm trying to be very clear about this, And that is the Messiah, the Jewish concept of Messiah. That's the Mashiach. So then he goes, G, and he says the name. Okay, now I'm stuck. What am I going to tell this guy? No, you're wrong. I got the right guy. You got the wrong guy. Nah. I couldn't do that. How will I find common ground? So I said to him, look, let's say you think the Messiah is somebody, and I think the Messiah is somebody else. And now the Messiah comes. Let's say, forgive me, let's say you were right and I was wrong. What's going to happen when the Messiah comes? Everybody will be happy. There will be no sickness. There will be no war. There will be no jealousy. There will be no hunger. There will be peace among the nations. There will be plenty of material good. Families will be happy, and he's nodding his head, and societies will be good, and everything is going to be great, and there will be eternal life, and wellness and sustainability, and the environment will be good. It'll be good weather every day. Yeah. I'm going... And now let's say I made a mistake and I was wrong about who I thought it was. How long can I be miserable under conditions like that? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a week. The whole world is celebrating. And just me, I'm going to be miserable because I thought it was somebody else? He goes, yeah. And then I go, what about you? What if you're wrong? What if I'm right? Long pause. What's your number? I gave him my number. He came over to my office, and we started to talk. What church you pray at? I thought it was a synagogue, He wants to come. I said, look, the prayer books are all in Hebrew. You'd be the only non-Jew there. Really, so I talked to him about the 7 Noahide laws, and we met another once or twice after that. And he was pretty happy to find out he could be God's best friend and not be Jewish. And this was actually something that he liked very much. And he was good. He wanted the education. He wanted the information. We needed a way to communicate where he didn't feel put down. We find common ground, we build it up, but he was ready because he knew something about it. He had some information that we could start with. Now let's work from there. Second story, the other religion Rambam refers to at the conclusion of Hilchos Melachim. And this story is actually in my book over here, The Abraham Principle, which just came out recently. There are a few here. I brought more than I need. Anyway, I was with my wife on a Toronto subway on the way to a dinner sponsored by the Canadian League of Human Rights, which was a B'nai Bris function. 500 non-Jews, 500 Jews, celebrating the philanthropy of a Sikh and a Jew who had a business partnership, and how wonderful they were creating, a new world, positive, progressive, feel-good dinner. And we're on the subway. Somebody stands right in front of me. I'm sitting, and he's holding a book, cradling a book, about 18 inches from my face, called Hezbollah, Party of God. And I'm looking at this book, and the Mediterranean youthful hand cradling it. I'm noticing that the corners of the book are rounded, brownish, and gray, that the spine of the book had crumbled to the extent that it looked like a handful of pamphlets, not a book. And I realized this was probably the only book that this guy's read in the past couple of years. And I figured, why is he standing here? I look up, my eyes meet his, and I realized I had to say something. I said, it's one God for the whole world, right? He goes, yeah. I say, he wants goodness and kindness, right? He goes, he's looking down and to the side. Yeah? I go, let's shake on it. He says, I cannot do that. Backs away like I wanted to wrap his body in swine flesh or something. I said, only what we agree on. God, goodness, and kindness. Nothing else. He said, I got to think about it. And he walked away. And my heart's going boom, 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 boom. And I'm looking at him, and he's wearing this jacket, and I'm wondering, is it bulging, and is this going to be Madrid, and what did I do? Did I agitate him? Should I be getting off? What's going to happen now? Had no clue. We were concerned, let's say. A few minutes later, he comes back, he said, I thought about it, okay. I put out my hand, he takes my hand, and it wasn't shaking hands. It was like holding hands. A nice, friendly, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It was a long, friendly handshake. And before he got off the subway, he came by once more. He said, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir. And he got off. Maybe Moshiach is that simple. I don't know. God, goodness, and kindness. These are criteria. These are criteria. This is a message that the Rebbe gave us, how to present Moshiach, how to present the Rebbe's message, how to present the future. Where are we moving to? How are we moving there? So, the Rebbe's message of Mashiach and Geulah, they're not futuristic promises. They are present tense realities. And what I want to do is give you a picture. The Rebbe told us to open up our eyes and see Geulah unfolding. I want to show you something. Can you hear okay?
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health, life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, $400, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago, in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy was below 40 in all countries. And only the UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, I start the world. The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now, we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Indonesia,